Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Congregation Beit Tikva, the House of Hope. We're delighted to have you with us for this Shabbat. This is a great Shabbat called Shabbat HaGadol, the great Sabbath preceding Passover. As you know, Pesach starts Saturday night of Motzei Shabbat, right after the conclusion of Shabbat, first Seder, this coming Saturday night. So welcome to Alma and Wendy. And they're going to lead us, they're going to offer us a duet for the music Erev Shel Shoshanim, the Evening of the Roses. If you'd like to follow the Hebrew words, it's on 654, in the middle of page 654. Let's continue with some more beautiful flute music. The words are Shalom Aleichem, one of our most traditional Shabbat melodies. You may follow the words on 142. Wendy and Alma will lead us in this beautiful duet. continue with the blessing over the Shabbat Lights. If you'll turn please to 121 and we'll sing together Hadlakat Ner Shel Shabbat in the middle of page 121. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. On 124, we're reading together in the middle of the page. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, and hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. Let's turn to the Psalms as we welcome the Sabbath. We always begin with Psalm 95. We're on page 130, singing together L'chud Naranana on 130. Together in English, come, let us sing joyously to Adonai. Raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hand are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, if you would but heed God's charge this day. Let's read also from Psalm 99. We're in the middle of page 135. Adonai, enthroned on cherubim, is sovereign. Peoples tremble, the earth quakes. Adonai is great in Zion and exalted above all peoples. They praise your name as great and awesome. God is holy, mighty ruler who loves justice. It was you who established equity, you who worked righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt Adonai, our God, and bow down to God's footstool. God is holy, exalt Adonai, our God, and bow toward God's holy hill. For Adonai, our God, is holy. Let's continue with Lela Dawkins, one of our most traditional Shabbat melodies. The words come from Shlomo Alkabetz, who was part of Isaac Luria's entourage of great rabbis teaching in northern Israel at the late 1500s. We're on 138, singing together. B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Shamur v'zachur b'dibur echad, Ishmiyanu elam yuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, L'shem u'teferet l'tida, Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mikor habracha, merosh mekedem nesucha, sof maaseh v'mashma techila, Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela. The last verse, Boi v'shalom. Boi v'shalom, ha'teret ha'olam, gam b'simcha u'b'tzala, tochem u'le'am s'gula, Boi chala, Boi chala. Lela Dawkins, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela, Lela Dawkins likrat kala, B'nei Shabbat mekabela. Please turn with me. We're going to chant together the Chatzi Kaddish. In your Siddur, in your prayer book, is on 144. And if you're able, please join us, stand up as we begin the blessings before the Shema Yisrael. Or if you're more comfortable, then be seated and relax. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabbi, v'yamad yivrachute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Agala, agala, u'vizman karim, imru, amen. Yesh meraba mevorach, le'olam yomei amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitada, v'yitaleh, v'yitalau, shemei nekudusha brichu, le'la mikol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata Nechemata Damiran Yama Bimeru. Amen. Together we lift up our voices for the Baruch Hu. The words are on 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Let's read together the translation or metaphorical translation for the first blessing, top of 149, on 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and seasons glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Aravim. The second blessing, Ahavat Olam, for the love of this world. God gave us Torah. We're in the middle of page 150. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them. Our life and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Together the words of the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Let's all be seated. Be comfortable. We continue, as we always do on every Shabbat, with the words of the Viajafta from the book of Deuteronomy. We're in the middle of 154. Viajafta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavecha v'chol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lechtecha v'aderech v'shachbecha v'kumecha v'kshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'eineinecha uchtabtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha Laman tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Amet. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you're at home, when you're away, when you lie down, and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So we turn to the words from Exodus. Michamocha. In our prayer books, we're on 158. kamocha ma'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedam hakodesh. No ratehilot osef eleh, no ratehilot osef eleh. Malchutecha ra'ovanecha bokeh Livnei Moshe Miriam, Zeli Anil Yamru, Adonai Imloch, Adonai Imloch, Leolam Vaed. We come to the blessing for Israel, for all Jewish people. We ask God to protect us with a sukkah, a sheltering booth on the Sabbath, protecting us from all harm and evil angels, as the traditional text actually says. So Wendy and Alma are going to give us a beautiful duet for the Hashkivenu. Let's turn the page. We come to 162. We're singing together, all of us, Vishamru. Top of 162, the words again are from Exodus, chapter 31. So we come to the 7 basic blessings for Shabbat, for Erev Shabbat. The Tefillah. Tefillah literally means prayer with a capital P. Please turn in your prayer books, page 164. If you're able, stand up and join us for the first 2 blessings. We always begin with a verse from Psalm 51. Adonai Safatai Tiftach. O God, open up our lips that we may praise you, give our praises to you. That's what Shabbat is all about, giving thanks and praise to the Almighty. Adonai Safatai Tiftach, Ufiyah Tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot Imahot, U'mevii Gula Lifnei Bneihem, L'man Shemo Yahweh, Melech Ozer Mashiach. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Page 168. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Yakol et harav le'oshia, Mechaker Chaim v'chesed, Mechayei Hakol v'rachamim rabim, Tzomech noflim v'rofeh cholim, U'mavir asurim, U'mekayeh emunato b'shenei afar, Mitamocha v'al geburot, U'midomerach, Melech Levy, U'mechayeh, U'matzmiah Yeshua, Leman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Let's read together 171, top of the page. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence, like lightning, illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed. When we, clay touched by God, reach out for holiness, exclaiming wonder. Filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Let's all be seated, be comfortable. We'll continue with the brachot. We're on 173, top of the page. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Together on 175, very top of the page on 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, shodcha levadcha, b'yirah na'avod. The blessing of Thanksgiving, the Modim. Let's read together in the middle of 177. When we behold your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and stars that you set in place. What are we humans that you are mindful of us? We mortals that you take note of us? You made us little less than divine, adorned us with glory and majesty. You gave us dominion over your handiwork, laying the world at our feet. How majestic is your name throughout the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot. We come to the final blessing, Shalom Rav, the blessing of peace. Let's all sing together. We're on 178. Let's pause for a few moments for our own meditations and prayers. let's think about our other self, namely our loved ones, our family, our friends, congregants, and folks all across the country in need of strengthening and healing for the Mishaberach. So this Shabbat, we remember Eliodoro Herrera, father of our cantor, Ephraim, and we also think of our cantor, Ephraim Herrera, as well. David Mattis, Lynn Kelly, Flo Vinnick, and Arlene Vinnick. And we're also thinking of Kate Shane, Bonnie Cantor, and John Dawkins. Any other good folks we should lift up for a blessing on the Sabbath? So if you'll turn please to 371, middle of page 371 are the words for the Mishaberach, and sing loudly and strongly so we can all strengthen ourselves on this Sabbath day. As I said at the beginning of our service, this is a special Shabbat. It has the name Shabbat HaGadol, meaning the great Sabbath, because it's so important for us to prepare ourselves mentally and spiritually before Passover. In the olden days, this was a time when the rabbi of the community was given the largesse, so to speak for a long, long time on Shabbat and speak of the laws of Passover. I'm not going to do that. You're all very lucky. But remember that Pesach starts on Saturday night, what's known as Motzei Shabbat, right after the Sabbath. It's kind of unusual. I think only once every 9 years does Passover begin on Saturday night. So if you're a very traditional Jew, it's actually a pretty difficult task, because it means that you have to prepare all of your Seder food on Friday morning to be eaten for the first Seder on Saturday night. Not to mention you also have to prepare your entire Shabbat meals on Friday, and if you're very Orthodox, you would have already done Bidikat Chametz Thursday night, and then on Shabbat, since we are commanded to be joyous and celebrate, you still have to eat challah, but the challah has to be consumed, I believe, before 12 noon, so that there's no more taste of chametz, of the leavened bread in your mouth. So when we come to the Seder in the evening, we're hungry and we're looking forward to eating matzah, remembering that we were freed from the land of Egypt. So now you just got 1/1000th of the laws on Pesach. Anyway, I hope everyone will celebrate and with friends. I know it's hard at this time the season, even though we're under somewhat of a restriction, but as you may know, we are having our own special Seder here in the sanctuary Sunday night for the second night, and a small group of us will be here celebrating, and everybody else can watch on your computer. So I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about the Torah portion. We're still in the beginning of the book of Leviticus, and remember I mentioned that this book of Leviticus was called by the rabbis Torat Kohanim, the laws of the priesthood, or the teachings of the priesthood. So the tradition says that the Jewish people have a special task. We are supposed to be a nation of priests, a holy people. It doesn't mean that all of us are going to become priests or Kohens, but it means we have a certain directed spiritual purpose in our lives. And in the ancient world, the priesthood, working in the sanctuary, in the Beit HaMikdash, followed certain tools or ritualistic vehicles in order to not only elevate themselves, but make sure that their actions, their priestly sacrifices, were to be accepted by God, meaning that they had to be cleansed themselves. They had to spiritually clean themselves up before they could do what God required of them. It was quite a spiritual task. And as we read through Leviticus and Numbers, you'll see a couple of times where the priesthood at times goes into a rebellious mode, and some of the priests are not so sure that they want to do exactly what the Torah commands. How do we know really what the priests were supposed to do in order to literally cleanse themselves? What was the process by which they could work for us? They were, so to speak, the ritual protagonists for all of us ordinary Jewish folks. One way to understand what they were doing was to look at the ordination ceremony for the priesthood. To become, quote, kosher, in other words, become a priest and do what Aaron and his family was supposed to do in the ancient world, first of all, they had to wash themselves. And today, what we would call a mikveh. Probably in those days, they went to the river or the stream and bathed themselves and said certain prayers. Then they had to wear certain garments, certain holy, purified clothing to demarcate themselves from the way ordinary citizens would dress. Then they would put on anointing oil, probably to cover literally the fragrance of the human body, which in those days, they didn't have all the chemicals, things available to cover up our personal odors. But more importantly, they would purify themselves, and the clothing would demarcate between the holy part of the person and the less holy. In other words, above the chagoret, above your belt, you were a holy soul. In other words, because it was your heart and your brain. And below was the generative organs of the human being, the malchut, the essence of who we are, how we procreate, and how we make children for ourselves. And then the priest would offer a sin offering. The sin offering was really saying, I may be a priest, but I have my own shortcomings. And I need to atone for those shortcomings before I can stand in the holy temple and offer prayers and sacrifices to God to lift up my Jewish people. And then, I'm getting to the essence of it all, Moses, after that sin offering, Moses would take some blood from the ram and put it, and this is the unusual phrase in this Torah portion, place the blood on the ridge of Aaron's right ear and on the thumb of his right hand and on the big toe of his right foot. Obviously, in the ancient world, they thought if you were a righty, you had power. They weren't too kindly disposed towards left-handed people, and that's the emes. But then that same ritual was offered to all the other members of Aaron's clan. They all had to go through this instance of placing blood on the ear, on the thumb, and the foot, on the big toe. And they did this for 7 days. Kind of unusual. So the question is, what in the world are they doing, putting blood on your ear, on your thumb, and on your toe? Of course, the rabbis, much later, have all kinds of interpretations. Philo, who was one of the great Jewish thinkers in the first century, in the time of the Romans, says, well, our words are judged by our hearing, by the way we listen to other human beings, the way we listen to God. Our actions are judged by our hands, what we do. And the foot, of course, is the mechanism by which we walk into the world, right? The way we go down the road, so to speak, the way we conduct ourselves. Ibn Ezra, writing 12 centuries later, Rabbi Ibn Ezra in the 13th century has a little different interpretation. He says, the reason for blood on your ear is that what happened in Mount Sinai? We heard the words of the living God. So we have to be attentive to the words of the priests, meaning the Jewish teachers, because it's not just another babble of words. It's something important. The thumb, Ibn Ezra said, is the origin of activity. You and I know that we're special, we're different from most other animals because we have that opposable thumb, right? But it really means, Ibn Ezra is saying, what we do with our thumbs, the way we turn pages in the book, the way we read, the way we concentrate, the way we write, all of that depends on the dexterity and the manipulation of our thumb and our fingers. And finally, the foot is a way of saying, if you walk down the way the right way, you'll do the mitzvahs, you'll do the good deeds. If you walk out there, towards the local tavern, you get yourself in trouble. But we need to walk in the straight path, so to speak. So I just want to mention one other part of this ordination ritual. When I was ordained as a rabbi in 1980, by the way, the teachers didn't do this for us. There was no blood ceremony. Blood is an ambivalent symbol. When we think of blood, we think of the lifeline of life, but we also think of perhaps of the destruction of life. And blood is such an important symbol in Jewish tradition. I mean, think about if your family had a little boy, probably at 8 days or a little bit after the 8th day, that little boy was circumcised. And part of the essence of that circumcision is what's called the son becomes the bridegroom of blood. He is intimately, inextricably bound up in the covenant with God, and that is symbolized by cutting, which of course produces some bloodletting. That's called Brit Milah, right? And think about Passover in Exodus 12. How did God tell us that we were going to be saved from the angel of death? We had to smear blood on the lintels, on the doorposts of our house. So when the angel of death came over the whole entire land of Egypt, that invisible angel or angelic presence would know not to strike down on the Jewish families. So blood has that sense of both destruction and renewed life. And that's why in the ancient world, the priests were ordained with blood on their ear, on their thumb, and on their foot. It's kind of the crux of all life. So does it make sense for us today? None of you, and neither you nor I, need to be consecrated in blood. In other traditions, including Christianity, they think that's an important aspect of their belief in the Almighty, but it's not what we are about. The fact is, all of these are metaphors. What we do with our hands, what we do with our hearing and our sight, which is extremely important, and what we do with our own legs, that's what makes us really a Jewish person. We walk in the right way, we listen to good stuff, we study, we read, we lift our hands out to help others in need. All of those movements of our body are symbolic of spiritual actions. And that's why I think we can still draw a lesson from it today. It makes sense, even if we don't have to have blood spilled on our own organism. So for Shabbat, please enjoy your challah. For Passover, I hope you'll all eat some matzah. put aside the chametz for a while. I could tell you a beautiful story about the difference between matzah and chametz, but you'll have to wait till Shabbat morning for that. Have a very sweet Shabbat and a happy Passover. Thank you to Wendy and Alma for beautiful music, for those wonderful duets. Thank you, Lela, for recording our service. We will have Torah study on Saturday morning, and it'll be a busy week. So the closing prayers are on 586. We're singing together Aleinu in the middle of the page. To the words of the Kaddish. We think of our own loved ones whom death has taken from us, and we remember all those who died at this season and years gone by. May their memories always be a blessing to us. On this Shabbat, remembering loved ones, their yard sites now recalled: Molly Brody, aunt of Dr. Rob Bernstein; Eric James Getz, son of Ruthie Koval; Norman Horwitz, father of Julie Horwitz-Kite; Harry Karps, father of Carol Karps; and Blodwyn McNichol, mother of Connie Rosenberg. Please turn with me to the Kaddish on 598. We'll all read together. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'olam almei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekucha b'richu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlamar rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. On 123, the words for the Kiddush, for the sanctification of the Sabbath day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen, Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratza banu, v'shabbat kadsho, yahava ratzon, im kilanu, zikaron le'maaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techilah, le'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'siyah Mitzrayim, ki v'anu v'rachata, v'yotanu v'kidashta, mikol amin, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'yamav ratzon, im katanu, baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Shabbat Shalom. Have a beautiful Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.